Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what is going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the flagship podcast. That's right, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com's The Standard is the Standard. It's year 6 or 7, I don't know. And joining me as always is my boy Lance Williams. Lance, I just want to say that somebody, and I don't know if they're in the live chat, I get every comment on our YouTube channel sent to me via email, and I look over them and everything. Someone went back and found our very first YouTube video. I had longer hair. You refused to have your face be shown. It was just like your
yes. I remember that. What did I say? I wouldn't show my face till we had 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, and here we are. We're on the verge of 5,000.
Yeah, I remember.
That was in 2017, and boy, have things gotten better.
Yes, I would not. Yeah, I remember that. I just had an emblem up front.
I was living at my mother-in-law's at the time. It was awful.
You know, you just said that in the first few minutes of this. I'm going to assume they don't listen.
No. All right, Wes, I did have hair, all right? Go back and check the tape. Speaking of something on your head, though, it looks like you got some Duck Dynasty hat.
I'm all in on Duck. I got the camp. You see, I'm trying to get it right. I got it's kind of dim in my background, but I got the camo hat. I got the fresh camo lid. I'm all in on Duck Dynasty, baby, and Duck I trust.
Quack, quack, man. Quack, quack. All right. It's an exciting time for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and to be a fan of the Steelers, it's just such a crazy season. It's been a lot of fun. I want to ask you a question before we get to the Arizona thoughts. And this is something that I wanted to talk about. I do articles I've read a ton of articles for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, but I did one that's called the Steelers Think Tank. And it's basically where I think of a question. I think it would be cool for people to discuss it. And so I read an article around it. Then they have the comment section to hash it out. And the other one I did yesterday, Tuesday, had a lot of comments, probably almost 70 comments when all was said and done. And here's the question, Lance. If the Steelers don't make the playoffs, how do you view the 2019 season in general?
That's a very interesting question, and I'm going to answer it the way I see most people answering it, and then I'm going to give you my answer. I think most Steeler fans are going to see it as a positive, given the circumstances.
You think?
I think most Steeler fans are going to say it's a positive, given the circumstances, given the fact that they're playing a guy who is essentially, their fourth string quarterback. Their starting quarterback is a Dash guy that just happened to have a nickname. So his name could be Duck Dash, just legitimately. So I think most fans would see it as a success. They thought the season would be, 4-12. I probably said 4-12 on the show, 3-13. I mean, after Ben got hurt, it was, jump off the bridge, one of the numerous bridges in Pittsburgh, the Clemente Bridge, any bridge you want to choose. And that's what I think the fan base was thinking. But I think the fan base is going to be positive about this season because of the turmoil that they've gone through with the quarterback position. And I think they'll see the season as a positive. Now, I think that's one way you could look at it. However, I choose to frame it in the lens of championships because I'm the ultimate spoiled Steeler fan, because I'm of the age where I was alive when they got all 6, right? I mean, I'm from Pittsburgh, North Side. I've lived through all 6 of those things. And I pretty much can only look at the season through one lens. Either you win it or you don't. And so if they don't go to the playoffs and they don't compete for a championship, for me, it's a disappointing season regardless of the circumstance. But I think a majority of the fan base will see the season as a positive.
Surprisingly, the article that I wrote, I checked in on the comments and things like that. And shockingly, most of the people were, like you said, positive. But at the same time, I still think a lot of those people still view the Steelers as sitting in prime position to make the playoffs. And so I think in the back of their mind, they're expecting that playoff berth. But if it doesn't happen, I think that the tune might change. But when you look at the grand spectrum of this season, and as you mentioned, all the stuff that went down, my goodness, it's remarkable that they're even in this position right now. let alone on the verge of a potential playoff berth. So I just thought it was really interesting. I wanted to get your take on that.
Well, let
Let's
me
hope.
add something, Jeff. Let me
Go
add
ahead.
something, Jeff.
Sure.
And we were going to talk about it later in the show, but I figured we just talk about it now. We got to give some kudos to Kevin Colbert and the coaching staff for one developing players and for Kevin Colbert identifying players like Kareth White, like Superman Dean Cain, like identifying guys like that off of the waiver wire, off of other teams' practice squads, and not only identifying talented guys, but the coaching staff then getting those guys ready to make contributions on Sunday. And we've seen contributions from both those players. So I don't know if I talk about it enough. You guys might on other shows. I know I don't. I don't give Kevin Colbert his just due. And I think Kevin Colbert is one of the best in the business, and I think it shows. And let's even extend it to, him getting out of his comfort zone and going to get Minkah Fitzpatrick. So a lot of the stuff that Kevin Colbert has done this year, has put the Pittsburgh Steelers in position to really go after this playoff spot. So, in this Christmas and holiday season, I want to give a big shout out to Kevin Colbert for doing a fantastic job. Might be one of the last few years that he's around here. So it's about time that he gets his just due.
It's great that you say that. And I kind of brought it up a few times when talking about free agent acquisitions. There's people like, Ed Bouchette of The Athletic, who I'm not a fan of, who, bashes their decision making off the field and says, "Oh, another," they're looking at look at Ladarius Green, look at Morgan Burnett, look at I can't remember, Dante Moncrief, all these failed free agent acquisitions, and it's like, well, are you forgetting Steven Nelson? I mean, he's panned out. Are you forgetting about bringing in a guy like Mike Hilton? He's panned out. I mean, we as a society, I understand, tend to glean and lean towards the negative. But I always say, people talk about,
See, you're gonna talk bad about me, and you couldn't even get it out of your mouth.
I was just going to say Homer and Hater. So you have these. There's even people that, this, I've said this, when they traded the first round draft pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick, I said, well, the Steelers aren't that good at drafting in the first round anyways, because you look at like Artie Burns, you look at Terrell Edmonds, who a lot of people think could have been in there in round 2, maybe even 3. But at the same time, people also, and if you're in the live chat and you were in the comment section of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, I read these comments myself. You could go back and read the articles. When they drafted TJ Watt in the first round, there were a lot of people thought it was a reach. I am not making that up, because a lot of people thought at the time he hadn't played defense his whole collegiate career. He was very rough around the edges. He was very Bud Dupree-like in the fact that he was a combine superstar, and the combine really pushed up his draft stock. There were people that said, they were upset that they didn't get David Njoku, who's now with the Cleveland Browns, who's never able to play because he's always hurt. There were people that bashed him because they thought TJ Watt was a reach. Sometimes they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
And no one, not even the mad genius, the mad cheater, we'll talk about that later, up in New England, hits on all cylinders all the time. Think about people that they've signed that haven't panned out in free agency. Think about these draft picks that don't pan out. Trust me, people, it's an imperfect science. But several GMs and several coaches have done it well enough for the long haul. Colbert's one, Tomlin's another. Be happy, because when he's gone, it might be different.
Yes, it could be.
So, okay. Kudos to Kevin Colbert. We'll leave it at that. Now, let's talk about the Arizona game, Lance. We always like to go back before we move forward, and we talk about the Steelers won. Arizona, we talked at length about that in our post-game show. You can go back and check that out on our YouTube channel as well as in audio platforms. But after having a chance to watch some film, and I know you did, what were some of the takeaways from that game in Week 14?
They played a very solid game in all phases. They got the special teams touchdown. I thought they ran the ball effectively in spots. I thought Devlin Hodges played his best game. I think he took care of the football. He made sound decisions. They have morphed into, and we're going to talk about it, on the show later, to what their identity is as a football team. And I think they played to that. There were some mistakes there. Of course, they continued the turnover streak to get it to an NFL historical record number of 20.
Is
But
that historically a
I think
record?
it is a record. I think that is an
Ugh.
NFL record, 20 consecutive games. I'm sure if I'm wrong, somebody in the live chat will point it out. But there's one number that I wanted to point out. It's the number 135. I meant to say it on our post game. Devlin Duck Hodges had 135 net yards passing. And, I always want to, give numbers to, the co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, Dave Schofield, who does the Outstanding Stat Geek show with his brother Rich. I wanted to give him that number, and I challenged him to find out what is the win-loss record for teams where their quarterback has a net passing yards of under 150. You can't win a bunch of games thrown for under 130, about 135 yards. So that's just the kudos to how well that defense is playing. But at some point in time, as they move forward, that net passing yards, it's going to have to go up a little bit. He's going to have to make a few more plays. But as it is now, they're playing to what I think their identity is, and they're winning football games.
Like you always say, I mean, when you win, it's tough. I mean, you win incorrect, but at the same time, it's tough to really criticize when they're winning these games this way. Is it sustainable? That's the ultimate question. Is it sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, 135 yards net passing. I mean, that's.
Well, but let's be honest. What we're really talking about isn't net passing yards. We're talking about, can the defense play well enough to keep them in the game where 135 net passing yards is good enough to win?
Correct. I mean, that's what you're putting it up against. Can they keep the games close enough to where the quarterback and the offense can make limited plays, a limited amount of plays?
Yeah.
And that's what they're going to have to do.
Is it sustainable to you?
It's almost a yes or no. And I hate to hedge like Dave. I hate to hedge like Dave because I'm trying to get out of this image of me being #the hater. At this point in the season, it is sustainable. So over the next few games, it's sustainable. They can play like this and continue to win. Could you play a whole entire season like this where, you're getting Trent Dilfer-esque quality quarterback play with Hall of Fame level type production on defense where you're getting ridiculous amounts of turnovers and sacks? I don't think that's sustainable over the course of a 16-game season, but in a short set of games where the N is very small, I think it's sustainable. I think they can continue to play like this and win over the next 3 games to close out this season. Can you win a championship this way? I don't think so, because I think at some point in time, you may have to win the shootout game if your defense doesn't play to its normal standard, and you have to go out and score 30 points.
Yeah, because right now it's score 20 and win, essentially.
Right.
Score 24, guarantee win.
Right. I mean, and that's tough going up against really good teams. I mean, and I hate to use, harken back to the San Francisco game, but can you go out and get 40 if your defense gives up 35 that day or 36? Can you go out and get enough points? Can you be that explosive to win that game? Because at some point in time, it may happen.
Well, let's talk about that San Francisco game and ask yourself if we were able to take the team that we see now every week and put it in that week 3 game. Remember those 5 turnovers that some of them, were almost in the red zone. I remember one in particular where a sack and a tackle for loss pushed them out of field goal range. They got no points. The team that we know now in terms of Devlin Hodges, a quarterback, who's available in terms of running backs and skill position players, would that game have been a different outcome if it trends the same way, but we know the personnel and offense is different?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you had Duck, I think if you had that defense the way it's playing now in San Francisco with Duck at the quarterback, I think they win that game. I think Duck gets them a touchdown, which is what they would have needed.
Has the red zone offense improved with Hodges at quarterback?
Not particularly.
Okay.
Because they're still not getting a lot of red zone attempts. and they're only getting like probably less than 2 red zone attempts, less than 3, probably around 2.5 red zone attempts a game, and they're probably only converting one of those. So they're only averaging 19 points a game. So the offense is what it is.
Okay, so let's go back to Arizona still, and you watched some film. You've been off work, so lucky for you. He's been able to watch some film, and you wanted to focus on the defense. And my question for you was, Lance, I have one main. I want you to look at one thing, and that is the Steelers secondary that good, or improved, I should say, or is it that the pass rush is covering up the inadequacies or issues in the back end? And you did. What'd you find?
The secondary is actually that good. I mean, the only issue that I'm seeing in the secondary is there is some inconsistency at times in dealing with bunch formations. And in fact, in the game, they gave up a touchdown on a rub concept or a pick concept in the red zone, where I think Arizona had trips to the left and had 2 wide receivers to the right, and they kind of just ran crossers. And, that's a lot of traffic. You can get picked off there, and they gave up the underneath route. Hayden was trailing. That's pretty much the only issue. They seem to be real tied in terms of what they want to do. They're passing off regular rub routes. Hayden or Nelson are not getting beat and ran past. I mean, there's not a lot of blown coverages. I mean, they really look really sound on the back end. Even the play where they gave up the touchdown where it was over Edmonds' head, that was an Edmonds issue. That wasn't that the scheme got beat or he wasn't in the right position. That was just a case of he can't catch fly balls. I mean, so even in that place, the defense was called right. He was in the right place. He just didn't make a play. So when you're combining how they're getting after the quarterback with their much improved play in the secondary, that's why they're playing really well. That's why they're getting turnovers. This is a really well put together defense. They're talented at all 3 levels: defensive line, linebacker position, secondary. They're talented everywhere, and they should be. What do they have, like 8 first rounders on the defense? Something.
Yeah. No, it's even more. That's like 10 first or second rounders.
I mean, something ridiculous like that. Now, just because you have that many guys doesn't mean you're going to be good, because playing 11, it's like a concert. It's like a mini symphony. It's an orchestra. You have to be in concert. Everybody has to be communicating well, and you have to know what you're supposed to do. They seem to be really in step. And here's the scary thing about this defense. Minkah Fitzpatrick is only playing deep free safety. Like, they haven't even gotten into the bag where they're going to make him more versatile. I can only imagine if they bring back some of these guys next year and Minkah is allowed to be this kind of joker guy that kind of moves around and does different things, just how good they'll be. Because right now, he's only playing deep safety, and he made one critical play, and that was the play where he diagnosed and tackled Kyler Murray in the red zone to prevent a touchdown. But, man, when they really unleash him, this defense is going to be even better. But they've got to sign Hargrave, and they've got to figure out what they're going to do with Alvin Stud Dupree. But this defense is really good, and it's playing really well, and it's communicating really well. And it looks much better than what I saw earlier. The only other issue is they're a little bit inconsistent in their run fits. And what I mean by that is that sometimes the rookie Bush will run past his gap assignment, and he will allow running backs clear cut back lanes because he over pursues. But that's a teaching thing. That's not really a lack of ability thing. That's a teaching thing for him to be patient and not over pursue and give up those cutbacks. But that defense is very good. It is absolutely one of the best 5 defenses in football.
Well, one of the things about Minkah Fitzpatrick is that you say, they're only going to get to use him in different packages, make him more versatile. This is only his 2nd year.
Yes.
He's still a really young player, but I know, Lance, that you have an athletic subscription because we share the password. Anyways, if you haven't read it yet, I've read it. They did a really in-depth piece on Minkah Fitzpatrick.
I did read it.
And my football playing was very, very limited in my life. And so I love reading stuff like this because it gives you a glimpse into the way that these superstar players think and they act. And it talked everything about his daily routine. But what I loved was that he spoke to this reporter, and it wasn't a Pittsburgh beat writer, how he watches so much film that he has an idea based on down and distance, based on personnel packages. It's like a Rolodex of plays in his head, and he can eliminate plays based on down and distance and personnel groupings. And so against the Browns, he talked about how because they are, at least Baker Mayfield is a second-year quarterback, they're experienced in multiple positions, they can run him as anything from any package. So his Rolodex is pretty full. He can't eliminate a lot. But against Kyler Murray, who's a rookie, is very clear when he watched film, this down and distance, they like to do this. And so that's how he was able to make some of those plays that he did, especially that red zone stop where Murray looked like he had the Red Sea had parted as Barron and Edmonds crashed down on the running back. Minka comes back over because he was able to just cut out that Rolodex. And it's just, I love that stuff because he's a football junkie. He loves it. He watches film like crazy. And this defense, elite, Lance?
Not yet. It's very close. It's very close.
You just want to say they're a top 5 team in the NFL. A top 5
the one thing. Here's the one thing, and Dave talked about it on his Stat Geek show. They give up some drives at bad times. There are some times in the game where you can really they can really put a stranglehold on teams and really capture the momentum and really choke some teams out. They tend to give up drives after they score. And we've talked about this for weeks. And maybe Dave will chart it for the Stat Geek show, but it just feels like every time the Steelers score, they give up a drive. Not every time, but around that. And me thinking with like a baseball player, when you score, you don't want to give up runs either in the top or bottom half of the next inning. You want to keep that momentum. I would have loved, in that game that, you just don't give up a score after you score. Just get the ball back to the offense, because this is an offense that needs snaps. It needs a lot of snaps to get rhythm. And you have to just get that ball back to your offense as quick as possible. But there's not much to nitpick when it comes to this defense. This defense is really good.
I don't know what elite would be then. I mean, every defense is going to give up points in today's NFL. It might come at inopportune times for the Steelers, but every team is giving up points. I would have to say that for me, I would say they're elite. Who
do you think is the best defense in the NFL?
Statistically, it's New England. I think that we've seen a little bit of flaws in their game recently, but as they play a little bit better competition. But it's I don't know if there are really, really great elite defenses now in the NFL, to be honest with you. I think when I say the Steelers are elite, I'm not comparing them to the Steel Curtain or to the 85 Bears or the early 2000 Steelers defenses, none of those. What I'm saying is that compared to their peers today, I feel like they're elite.
Yeah, I think the Patriots probably are the best defense. And I think you're right. Dominance on defense looks a little bit different. But the one thing that Steelers are even growing, getting even better is they were outstanding, I thought, in the red zone, except for the one touchdown pass. I mean, that could happen. Their coverage was really, really good in the red zone in this game. And so, again, the TJ Watt play baiting Kyler Murray into that throw. I mean, that's just savvy. I mean, that's a defense playing with swag, and they play with swag, and they believe that they're really good.
See, I look at it this way and say that in the NFL today, if elite defenses are basically null and void because of the rules that are against them, elite defenses, in my opinion, do two things well. They sack the quarterback and they take the ball away.
I would agree.
And Pittsburgh does that better than anybody in both categories.
So maybe I am saying they're elite. Maybe you argued me into saying
Homer wins again
because they're leading the NFL in number of turnovers and sacks, 48 and I think 33 respectively.
Yeah. So all right, let's talk about sacks for a second. The sack controversy. We talked about this in the post-game show, and that was that the game books, and I'm talking about any game book that you looked at, whether it's ESPN, NFL.com, NFLGSIS, all those different sites that have game books had Kyler Murray is sacked 5 times, yet only 4 Steeler players were credited for sacks. Lance, where's the 5th sack? What's going on?
The 5th sack was late in the game after Cameron Hayward got his sack.
Back-to-back sacks on the last drive.
So the 5th sack came at 2nd and 15 with 1:21 left. And I'm looking at it here, and it is not credited to anyone. If you look at the NFL Game Pass where you can rewatch the plays, it just says Kyler Murray sacked at Arizona 14 for -6 yards, fumbles and recovers at Arizona 13. Kyler Murray to Arizona 13 for no gain, and that's credited to Bud Dupree. But the sack was not credited to Bud Dupree. It's just, I guess, the tackle and Murray running for no gain was credited to Bud Dupree. So it feels like they're going to give that sack to Bud Dupree. But when you watch it, honestly, it just looks everybody hit him at the same time. It's a really weird play.
Do they give out 8? Do they give out eighths of a sack?
No, they don't. Like, because I think the lowest denomination
is a half.
Is a half. Yeah, I mean, it's really weird. And looking at the play, and I'm looking at the play, actually looking at the play again, I think what's going to happen is I think they're going to give Hargrave and Bud Dupree each a half sack because Kyler Murray on the play rolls out to his right and he just drops the ball. And no, actually, they're going to give that sack to Bud Dupree because Bud Dupree is the first person to contact him after he dropped the ball. But the reason why I don't think they said it was a sack is because he dropped the ball behind the line of scrimmage. So I think they might have been confused. I don't know why they didn't credit it to Bud Dupree.
Someone. Just credit to someone.
Because Bud Dupree touched him first after he drops the ball. Then Hargrave touches him. So Bud Dupree will probably get the sack. And if he does, I'm going to guess he's up to double digits, 10.5.
He would be. He's at 9.5 right now. He's already in career air. You know what I mean? So he's obviously, I think 8 was his career high up until now. So,
well, I'm sure his agent will be contacting the National Football League for that bonus. I'm sure that's in his contract if he gets double-digit sacks.
It just goes to show you, we talked about Kevin Colbert. People were very critical of him when he picked up Bud Dupree's 5th-year option. I'm pretty sure we both said that they shouldn't.
No, we probably did. I mean, I think it's a case of Bud Dupree is a first rounder. I mean, you have to. I mean, you got to pick up the 5th. I mean, he's a first rounder. I mean, you got to see.
They're not picking up Artie Burns' 5th. They didn't pick up El Busto's 5th.
Well, El Busto didn't show anything, and Artie Burns. And if you don't know who El Busto is, ladies and gentlemen, that's Jarvis Jones.
It's been a while since we've said his name.
El Busto. I think he's out of football. In fact,
he is. I think he's coaching back at Georgia. To be honest with you,
yeah. Well,
I don't know what he's coaching and how he could even do that, but
not pass rushing.
Hey guys, that's what I did when I was in the NFL for 5 days.
He had 5 sacks for his career, maybe. I know he didn't have double.
Maybe.
I don't think he had double-digit sacks for his career. I doubt if he had one of T.J. Watt's years in sacks.
Well, T.J. Watt's a freak. All right, let's get into the injury report. This is something we want to talk about because I have some questions that kind of pertain to this information. The Steelers' first injury report was released today. They actually had some good news today. 2 players that everyone's waiting for them to return, Juju Smith-Schuster and James Conner. Juju has been out with a knee, James Conner with a shoulder. That's not breaking news. Both were full participants in practice today. That's a big thing. However, Jalen Samuels' groin did not practice. Vance McDonald concussion did not practice. That's not a good thing. And then obviously everyone else that didn't practice was not injury related, meaning they got a day off. So Villanueva, DeCastro, Pouncey, and Barron. So there is the Steelers injury report. Lance, does that give you some good vibes going into Week 15? The fact that those 2 key players might be on their way back?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that's positive. Anytime you can get work in, that means you're closer to getting back. If you're not practicing, you're not close to getting back. So I think that's positive. But I think that's a great segue into the topic about the running back position and tease that, Jeff.
Absolutely. So something that was asked of I'm sorry. Max Richter puts $5 in the tip jar and says for the Homer hater fund. We appreciate it, Max. And by the way, if anyone wants to help the show out, you can give us a super chat just like Max did. Right next to the comment bar is a little dollar sign. You can donate any amount of money to the show. We really appreciate anyone doing that. But if you don't want to help us financially, just like the video, subscribe to the channel. When you subscribe to the channel, go up, hit that bell button, and set up your notifications however you'd like. Set them up so that you can actually get it to email, push button, all that. So like the video, subscribe, comment, set up your notifications. We appreciate all the support. So on Tuesday, Mike Tomlin was asked, because he obviously prefaced everything with the injury report and talked about how James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster should be back on the practice field. They asked, well, when James Conner comes back, how are you going to handle the running backs? Because as of right now, it's kind of by committee, wouldn't you say? Lance, Benny Snell, Kareth White, Jalen Samuels, they're all mixed in there, right?
Yeah, it's a calico mix. It's Voltron-esque.
So in other words, would he keep that, or would he go back to Connor's the guy, you are going to spell him when he needs a break? And he was non-committal, said, well, this is all if Connor comes back. We don't know. But Lance, let me ask you, if you're Mike Tomlin, James Conner's healthy. He's deemed that he can play. He's not going to have another Cleveland week 11 where he played for like a few drives and then hurt his shoulder again. How do you handle the running backs with Conner back in there?
Let me ask you this before I answer, Jeff. Do you consider any of those guys having the hot leg or hot hand, so to speak?
Snell would be the closest person to that description, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's lukewarm too. That's the bowl of
Benny no Jets.
That's Benny no Jets. That's the Happy Meal or
but I will
dinner you heated up and forgot it was in the microwave.
I will say that White is starting to show something.
See?
It's just a small sample size. It's just a really small sample size, but I think White's starting to show something.
I think the brother Schofield made a great point about this question, the brother Schofield on the Stat Geek.
The good brother Schofield. Go ahead.
The good brother Scos. I think Edmonds is the odd man out, but they brought up a good point about Edmonds playing fullback occasionally. But I don't think that's enough to keep him in the rotation at the running back position. I think he would end up being a special teamer because I think you got to play White more, because when you watch White on film, he's explosive. He runs and he's cutting and shifting. Like when you watch film with no sound and the view, you can really tell when guys are moving fast and guys look a little bit more dynamic. It's a little harder to pick up that, I think, just on the regular TV shot. But White brings explosiveness to the offense. He brings juice to the offense that the offense needs. In fact, even if Conner comes back, I think Edmonds is the odd man out, but I also think Jalen Samuels snaps should be reduced as well, because White made a play in that game where he had to adjust his body, I believe, on a little dump off in the flat, where he kind of had to catch it behind his back. He caught it, got his body upfield, made a cut, ran for about 10, maybe 12 yards, got to the outside, got out of bounds. That play told me right there, if he's solid in pass pro, he should play more snaps. And maybe that's the only thing that's keeping him off the field. But I think Edmonds is out, and I think Samuel's snap should get reduced if Conner comes back.
See, I disagree. I agree with them as everything that you said in regards to White. I think that this week they're not going to, if Conner comes back and is deemed healthy to play, I don't think that they have to make a decision this week, because I don't think Samuels is going to play. I think that unless he practices tomorrow, he missed practice today with his groin. I think that honestly, he's not going to play. So therefore you don't have a decision to make. Your running backs would be Conner, Snell, White, and Edmonds. Okay. Don't forget the special teams that you talked about. Edmonds is going to play because he plays special teams. He was the one that recovered the fumble when Jordan Berry did his best run into a brick wall impersonation and lost the ball. White is the kickoff return man. So even though he's the hot hand, he is still a contributor on special teams. Snell is a special teams contributor. You sent a screenshot of him having the key block on Deontay Johnson's 85-yard punt return.
And props to Benny No Snell.
Exactly. Now, Samuels was on the field at that time, too. He was telling Deontay, come on. So they all contribute in some way. But I think that right now, if you're talking about overall style, overall ability, overall potential, Samuels is your odd man out because Edmonds has also been playing fullback in short yardage situations.
Well, if we're going to assume Edmonds is out.
No. He's playing.
Okay, no, excuse me, not Edmonds, Samuels.
Yeah.
We're assuming Samuels is out. Who should get more snaps? Benny No Jets or Carrick White?
I think you do exactly what you've been doing with the three backs.
Okay.
You give Connor the first touches, and then the next drive you put in Carrick White, and I think then you go to Benny Snell in that order. That's the exact order that I would do if Connor is healthy. I would really hope that the Steelers are smarter with him coming back the second time. If he's not 100%, don't even put him out there because he's just going to get hurt again because he's a running back. He's going to get popped. It's part of the position. So
you know what they're going to do to him, and I don't want to sound like this Steeler fan because of the importance of this game, and we'll talk about it. If they win this game against Buffalo, this is a double chin strapper.
Yeah.
On Sunday, and this is all all hands on deck, and if it requires him running 25-30 times for them to get a victory, he'll run 25-30 times and be on IR on Monday. I mean that's
you're right.
That's the importance of this game. If they beat Buffalo, they're a 5 seed. And they pretty much control their destiny. Well, they control their destiny now, but if they beat Buffalo to get to the 5 seed, you beat a bad Jets team and you're in the playoffs. So and here's the thing, listeners, is that Connor will sign up for that. Connor will sign up with two hands. If you ask James Conner, if you run the ball 30 times on Sunday, you guys will go to the playoffs and you'll be on IR, he'd sign up for that.
One of the things that they could do with Connor, if they do want to ease him back into things, is almost make him a third down back. He is good in pass protection. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He knows where to go, when to release. It's not going to be – Benny Snell is not great in pass protection. Carrick White is not the largest man ever. I would say that if you're looking for a role for James Conner to ease him back, I think that's not a bad role. Do you agree or disagree?
That'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting utilization of him, and it would be different because I don't think the Bills would anticipate that he would be the third down back. I think they would think it would be White and or Benny Snell. So that'd be a good usage of him. But I just hope he's back because, when you're talking about White, Snell, and Edmonds, that's Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Oh, my.
Against Buffalo, especially.
Now, my.
Now, here's the other thing. And so we just talked about the running backs, who's the odd man out. But what about the wide receivers? So when Juju Smith-Schuster comes back, okay, who's the odd man out in that scenario? Because now I know what most people are thinking. And I agreed with something that Dave Schofield said last night in his Stat Geek when they were kind of throwing this around as well. Who's the odd man out for you in the wide receiving core?
This is an interesting one because they're so bad at the position. It can't be Dean Cain, obviously.
Dion. I know what you mean. You just call him Superman.
Yes, exactly. I call him Dean Cain because he's Superman. It can't be Cain.
Right.
It can't be Washington. It can't be Deontay Johnson. Are you
forgetting everyone else?
Johnny Holton plays special teams.
That's the thing. That's the character.
Anybody?
Tevin Jones is the other one.
Yeah, it has to be Tevin Jones. Can we talk for a minute? It has to be him. It has to be Tevin Campbell. It has to be Tevin Jones.
Every time you call Tevin Campbell, I laugh. I can't.
He has to be the odd man out. I mean, I mean, and that was a challenge, Jeff. I was trying to look up the roster because you, you
I'm writing down the depth chart on a piece of paper, and I'm sitting there listening to Lance. I'm like, he doesn't know other receivers. He doesn't know who other receivers are.
I did forget Tevin Campbell. I did. I mean, that's a nondescript group. I mean, it really is. But yeah, I think he'd have to be the odd man out. I mean, there's not. I mean, yeah, I think he'd be the odd man out. But I'm so excited to hopefully get Juju back, because with the emergence of James Washington and Deontay Johnson now playing good football, that's a nice. It's not the greatest of threesomes, but it's pause. It's a great combination. I think that it could be productive. Each of those guys have unique skill sets. Washington can go deep. Deontay Johnson's a little elusive. Juju can work out the slot as well as work as a wide receiver, a Z receiver. So I would be excited about all three of those guys playing if you could get them all back.
Here's my thing, and for crying out loud, I think Dave might have said this, or it might have been Brother Schofield. That is, if you're can they go jumbo? They put Johnny Holton out wide. I don't know why. They either misconnect or he drops the ball every time they throw it deep. Put Deion Kane out there, who's an actual threat to get down the field, and that's something that he has done and been successful at since he's been acquired by the Steelers just a few weeks ago. I want to see them utilize him more, because I think he's that deep threat that even though Deontay Johnson can get deep, even though James Washington can get deep, it's just not the same. He has that burner straight line speed, and he's a Clemson guy, I'm pretty sure. So he was there with Martavis and all those guys. So he can run. He can run.
I got a question I want to tease to the live chat for people in the live chat. I've watched film. I watch film. You got the most interesting thing I've seen on film this year is Zach Banner goes out in routes. Zach Banner actually is wide open all the time when he goes out in routes. What's the over-under on the number of receptions? What would you put the over-under on the number of receptions that Zach Banner gets this year?
A half a catch.
You get a half catch?
He's not going to get 2 catches. So you're either going to say he's going to get a catch or he's not going to get a catch.
Yeah, I mean, I think you think he'll get 2 targets, maybe?
Well, if you're not targets is different. I would still say if you said 2 was the target over under, I would take the under.
You take the under. I think he's going to get a target this year.
Did you see that hard pump fake at him though? It was so bad that his hands came up like, oh my gosh, he's throwing me the ball. He just tucked it back in, threw it the other way.
I think we are going to see a trick play with Zach Banner this year.
Did you see in Mike Tomlin's press conference Tuesday, they asked, is Zach Banner athletic enough to play fullback? And Tomlin just said, no.
Yeah, he
didn't sugarcoat it with, that's a position that requires a certain amount of athleticism and stability. Just no.
Don't be surprised. I think there is a trick play coming to Zach Banner.
Could it be this? Northtop brings us up. Boswell to Banner. Harken back to the Denver game where it was Boswell to Villanueva for a touchdown, if you recall.
It could be. I mean, he goes out on routes consistently. Like this isn't an anomaly. It happens. It happens a couple of times a game. And it's so odd because he's so large. He occupies so much space. And the funny thing about it is no one runs near him. They're just like, he's not getting it. They just like, whatever. Go ahead and run out there, fat guy. You're not getting the ball. Like he gets no attention. And he's just standing there. I sent you guys pictures of it. And he's just standing there like he's in a park by himself.
Now, I don't know if you follow all the players on Twitter, but if you haven't, you need to go back and just look at the exchange that Duck Hodges and Zach Banner had on Twitter over that play after the game. It was hysterical.
He was
so funny.
wide open, like literally, like
he hard
that was.
pump faked that thing. Like I said, Vader's hands went up like, oh, here we go, and then he just pulled that thing down.
I mean, that was actually the good read. That was the right read. Like the throwing it to him in the flat where he had at least 15 yards of open space in front of him would have been the correct throw. However, they must know he can't catch.
It's kind of like if you see the movie Varsity Blues.
Yes, but don't ask me to remember anything from
Well, it's just like Billy Bob. Billy Bob's the big offensive lineman. They want to run the hook and ladder, and he bobbles the ball every time, and he can't do it. He can't catch the ball.
Yeah, if he can, yeah, he's wide open. So I think he's going to get one catch this season.
Okay, so you would take the over on that half catch.
Yes, I'm going to take the over. I think he gets one catch. I think it comes in a great moment and
touchdown or just a key first down.
Key first down.
Okay.
Out of that 7 when they put the 2 tight ends and the extra linemen and they still run to the overload. I'm like, geez, this isn't creative. We're going to run to the strong, super strong, Bill Bixby strong side. Anyway.
Well, it'll be interesting. If he were to catch a touchdown, Heinz Field would erupt. I'll tell you that. They would erupt because they already go nuts when he's just reported as eligible. All right, let's talk about the headline of this show before we get to our upcoming game against the Buffalo Bills in Week 15 on Sunday Night Football. I said, what do you want the headline to be for this episode? And you said the Steelers have found their identity. And you were definitive. It wasn't a question. You were definitive. It was a statement. So, Lance, I ask you, what is the Steelers' identity if you are so sure that they found it?
The funny thing is, it's like this is a return to the past. I mean, the Steeler identity currently is what most people seem to think is the Steeler identity. Running the football, playing great defense, time of possession, and grinding out games. I mean, I think they have realized that they have to cater and play to their defense. They have to protect the football, run it well, make plays in the passing game occasionally, and rest, and rely on this defense to take the ball away and make good plays and keep the score down. Reduce the games to a point where you have to make 1 or 2 offensive plays or a special teams play and you win the football game. I mean, Duck Hodges threw the ball 19 times. Yeah. He had 16 completions. I mean, if you guys listen to the Stat Geek show, I mean, they averaged 4.8 yards on first down, which is 31st in the National Football League. This is not an explosive offense. And I think Tomlin indicated that weeks ago with this famous quote, as I hope he just doesn't kill us. And that's how they're going to play. And that's why I coined the phrase back then, #aggressively conservative. They're going to try to figure out how to be aggressive but conservative to where the quarterback doesn't lose the games and you can run the ball, try to grind up time of possession, make a few plays on offense, but largely rely on your defense to keep you in games and or score or give you multiple possessions via turnovers. This looks like old school. This is old school football for the Pittsburgh Steelers that you saw in the early half of the Steeler curtain, not the high-flying, dynamic half of the Steeler curtain where Swan and Stallworth were making all those plays, but that first 2 championships where they grinded it out, ran the football, and won using their defense and running game. So it's sort of like getting back to what most people think is Steeler football. That's their identity. So I guess their identity is themselves. It's a return to their core, to their root, to who they are, and to who they have been as a football team.
I agree with everything you said. And there's not much you can do. But, I asked you a question. I think it was on the post-game show. If not, it was last week during the Standard as a Standard. And I asked you, Lance, is this team dangerous? Have they become dangerous? And you laughed at me and said no. And, in which case, I was offended and felt the need to defend myself. And so I kind of convinced you that they might be dangerous. Anyways, I think I've narrowed down basically one thing that this team, if they do this one thing better, you could add a second, but the second's too obvious. If they do one thing better, I think they enter elite status in the postseason. And that is third down efficiency. If this team can get better on third downs to the point that they have time-sustaining drives, take time off the clock, keep the opposition off the field, and give your defense a chance to be fresh, that is a recipe for success. That's when you're dangerous. Now, you could easily throw in the red zone, improving in the red zone when you get down to the red area, scoring touchdowns and not kicking field goals. But like you said, sometimes you got to play to your strengths. And sometimes Chris Boswell, especially this season, yes, I knocked on wood, I'm superstitious, he's been money. And so field goals are points too. And you might have to lean on him in kicking those 47-yarders, getting points, but you took time off the clock. You got your defense fresh. They're out there. They're out there next drive, and they're raring to go.
Riddle me this, Jeff. In Kansas City a couple of years ago, when they went to Kansas City and won a playoff game, didn't they kick 6 field goals?
Yeah, they won a game by kicking 6 field goals.
And they won the game?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
That was the Facebook Live video game.
Yeah, so all you have to do is score more points than the opposition, and you win the game. It doesn't matter how it looks. Figure out and find a formula to win. I think you're absolutely spot on with that, but it coincides with first down. They have to get better on first down to make third down,
third and manageable.
And potentially get out of third downs by getting first downs on first down and or first downs on second down, so you don't have to have as many third downs.
Well, Dave is he just harps on the fact that they start games horrible. Oh my gosh, the starts are awful, and they are. I'm not disagreeing with him. And they had 4 first downs on their opening drive against Arizona, and it resulted in a field goal. What did they do different? They actually threw the ball a couple times on first down.
Absolutely.
I mean,
great simple concept too on the first play.
Yep.
Just you run a clear out route, with James Washington, and you run a shallow cross underneath it, easy throw. I think they got like 15, 16 yards on it.
Yeah.
Real easy throw.
Stunned. I was like, oh my gosh, they just threw the ball on first down in a scripted drive. Like,
and what happened as a result of that long drive? They got momentum in the game. End up getting up 10 with the special teams play, and you felt as if the offense, sort of like food. You sprinkle a little bit of salt and the flavor wakes up. That's kind of what you felt like when they made some positive plays on first down and they actually completed some passes. Like, oh, this is a little flavor enhancer here. But yeah, they're close. Dangerous. I'll say yes, because any team that gets to the playoffs is dangerous. However, they still have a quarterback in Devlin Hodges that they would be at a distinct disadvantage going up against any AFC team in the playoffs. I mean, the only other quarterback I would think that's the second worst quarterback going into the playoffs, that would be Ryan Tannehill if Tennessee got to the playoffs. But, the quarterback position is, obviously the most important position. The Steelers would be at a distinct deficit in that case. But I think they have found their identity. Run the ball, and they got to stop turning it over. Run the ball, don't turn it over, play solid defense. Don't turn the football over, convert some third downs and see where it gets you.
That's very true. Cody Marshall puts $2 in the tip jar, gives us a stat line for Zach Banner. He said this Sunday, 72, Zach Banner, 2 touchdowns, 80 yards. Could you imagine seeing Zach Banner run 80 yards?
If he ran 80 yards, the game would end on Monday.
We just get out the sundial.
Yes, it might take him 48 hours to get from one end to the other.
Okay. Let's talk about this upcoming game. Pittsburgh, Buffalo. It's been flexed from 1 p.m. to Sunday Night Football. We knew this yesterday, and I actually predicted this. You can ask Dave. I sent him a text that I bet they go and they wear their color rush jerseys on Sunday, because this will be the second straight year in a row that they've worn their color rush 2 times in a season. And both times it's been at home in Week 15. Week 15 last year was New England. They wore their color rush for the second time. They beat the Patriots at Heinz Field. This year, Week 15, Buffalo, second time. They're 5-0 in the color rush. Lance, what are your just general thoughts about this game coming up?
I'm kind of pissed that they're wearing the color rush because...
Really? I thought you would be all jacked up.
You know why? Because that idiot Mr. 3rd and 5th forced me to get rid of my color rush. My color rush was that idiot's number, and I don't know if you heard, he went on another
He
diatribe on
did. I
Twitter.
went and checked it out. He's an idiot.
Yeah, so how did you check it out? I'm blocked on Twitter.
He didn't block my personal one, so I can still see it there.
Okay, I know I'm blocked on Twitter, so I get no access to Mr. Third and Fifth. But I'm a little upset because they're going color rush because I don't have a color rush jersey. But when I think about this game, let me read these stats to you. It comes down to a couple of things because I've texted you. The Steelers, to me, are playing their mirror image. A very tough, gritty football team that runs the football, scores how it can, and it has an outstanding defense. I mean, their defense, I thought, played that Baltimore team about as good as the Steelers did because the Steelers got 3 interceptions and 5 sacks against Lamar. But I thought they played really well against Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense. But let me read these stats. That the Steelers lead the NFL in sacks, QB hits, and takeaways. Since the 1970 merger, only one team has led the NFL outright in both sacks and takeaways for a full non-strike shortened season. That team was the 1974 Steelers original Steel Curtain Super Bowl IX champion. The Steelers this year have 48 sacks, 96 quarterback hits, and 33 takeaways. If you watch that game last Sunday between the Ravens and the Bills, even if you don't know anything about football, the first thing that should have stood out to you was Josh Allen struggles against the blitz. The offensive line struggles against the blitz. The running back struggle against the blitz. The quarterback struggles against the blitz. And the wide receivers aren't running the hots fast enough. They struggled mightily against the blitz, and they gave up tons of pressure. Here's some stats from that game. He was blitzed 30 times and completed only 29% of his attempts. He was 7 of 24. He was 1 of 13 passing beyond 15 yards, 0 of 11 outside the pocket, all under duress, and 1 of 16 while under duress. This game comes down to stopping their running game. I think it's Singletary or Singleton.
And the running game is Singletary and Gore.
Yeah, and Singleton, I think him and Singletary. I think he's with Kareth White. I think they played together in college. I believe Kareth White was his backup, if I'm not mistaken. If you can choke down the running game, this is a game where this defense can actually go out and win it, where they can get enough sacks, enough hits, cause enough duress where I think they can put this offense into enough great down and distance situations to score enough points to win. So it has to be about them getting pressure on a young quarterback and really bringing the heat. Also, a key matchup, I think, is Beasley versus Mike Hilton. Beasley's a monster in the slot. That's a matchup that concerns me because that can give the young quarterback, short, medium range passes to alleviate some of that pressure. But it's all about pressure. Pressure busts pipes, and the Ravens busted pipes against them. They made some plays late in that game, but it's about getting heat and getting pressure. And I think this Steeler team, 48 sacks, can get after them. And ironically, with those 48 sacks, they're second in adjusted sack rate, and that's a stat that you guys can read about on Football Outsiders. It's a fantastic stat, and it just shows you just how dominant this Steelers pass rush has been because they're number 2 in the National Football League in adjusted sack rate at 10.1%. And the only 2 teams that are that high are them and the San Francisco 49ers. This Steeler defense will get after that Bills offense on Sunday.
You kept reading all those stats from last week's play from Allen against against the Ravens. That was in Buffalo. That was a home game.
Yes.
Keep that in mind.
Yes.
That was not at M&T Bank Stadium.
Yes.
That was in Buffalo.
Great
So
point.
he's coming to Pittsburgh. He's never played in a primetime game. It's at least not Sunday Night Football. Never played on Sunday Night Football. Never been to Heinz Field. The Steelers haven't lost to the Bills in over 20 years. And out of those 48 sacks, I want to say 38 of them have come at Heinz Field.
Yeah, I mean, and you
This
watch that game.
Get after it at Heinz Field.
And you watch that game, Jeff. I mean, they just went after him. It was almost like every other drop back. I mean, they were sending 6, they were sending 7. I mean, all I saw was Earl Thomas rushing the passer. I saw it at least 10, 12 times. I mean, they were going after him with no regard for their wide receivers. They were like, look, we could lock up one-on-one, and we're getting after you because you guys can't handle it, and he can't handle it.
And you kept saying, the quarterback struggles with the blitz, the line struggles with the blitz, and I'm thinking, no one blitzes more than the Steelers.
Yeah, they struggled at all levels.
They blitz all the time.
I mean, they were struggling at all levels with it. I mean, no one was. I mean, running backs were getting overwhelmed. It was just, and that game wasn't as close as that final score.
No.
Because I think at one point it was 24-7 in the fourth quarter, and they made some plays to get into that game. But this is a game where I think the defense has to go out and win this. They have to. If you want me to say you're elite, go out and dominate this Buffalo Bills offense.
Okay. All right. Now I see what you're saying. What's your prediction? Let's get to predictions. What's your prediction?
You got to give your breakdown first before I.
Well, I mean, you kind of said everything, and I'm going to talk about it in the Steelers preview tomorrow, so I don't want to.
Well, let me give you my prediction.
Go ahead. I've got mine ready. I'm going to give you my prediction. If that's what you want me to go first, I'll give you my prediction.
I'm going to give you my prediction.
Go ahead.
Steelers win 17-13.
Ooh, okay. We're close to each other here in my predictions, and the Steelers are 2-point favorites last I saw. So you said 17-13?
Yes.
I'm going 2017. Pittsburgh wins. Close one. It's going to be a close one. But
Boswell game-winning field goal?
No. Defense is going to make a stand.
So give me your over-under on sacks and turnovers.
Okay, let me write these down. I'll ask Dave tomorrow. Sacks, over-under, we're going to say 3.5.
I take the over.
Huh?
I'll take the over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Takeaways, over-under is, I don't know how many giveaways they've had. I'm
going to say 5 and 3.
No.
I'm going to say 5 sacks, 3 turnovers.
Okay, so I don't know how many turnovers they've had. Buffalo.
Oh, Buffalo's had.
I was going to say 2, but
from what I can tell from the games I've watched them about 4 times.
Well, I do know that
they don't turn over a lot though.
Josh Allen has fumbled the ball 8 times this season.
Well, TJ strip sack.
There you go. How about strip sack, scoop, score? Can that happen?
He wanted to be Lawrence Taylor.
It would be strip sack, fumble recovery, touchdown.
That's LT style.
That is. All right, here's the big question. Turnovers. One.
Yes. 21.
That's what yes. I feel like you're rooting for it.
I mean, it's been 20 straight games. Of course, I would say they're going to turn it over. Some people would argue the opposite. Well, it's been 21, and the odds that it'll be another game that are just slim. They're defying odds all the time. Just turn it over early. Hopefully, it's not a scoop and score or a pick 6. But this is a game where the defense has to give them extra possessions, and they have to turn it over. If they don't turn it over, it's going to be tough sledding for them to score.
Yeah,
because they really handled Baltimore pretty well. They played Baltimore's run well. I mean, they had a couple of great plays on a coverage bust too. I think it was Hayden Hurst who was out the gates on that touchdown, but they played Baltimore really well.
Yeah, that was also at home. So let's what about penalties? Pittsburgh penalties, 5 over under. Oh, so we're going to play a clean game. I like that. I like that a lot. So, all right. That sounds great. I think that it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a physical game. If you like defense, this is a game to watch. If you like offense, might want to look away. Just saying. Might want to look away. All right. Lance, why don't you send us off?
Steeler fans, double 10 strap game, baby. Show us what you're made of. Make sure you tune in to that. And we always appreciate you guys tuning into the show. Want to make sure you guys stay healthy during the holidays. Hopefully you guys are getting off and getting into the mood. It's the most beautiful time of the year. Ding, dong, ding. All that good stuff. But as always, we appreciate you. Like the show. Please subscribe. We're trying to get to 6,000 subscriptions by the end of the year. We better get to 5,000 by the Bills game. Here, I'm putting this out there, Steeler fans. Steelers beat the Bills on Sunday. We better be at 5,000 on Monday.
Or
we
what?
better be, or I'm gonna have Jeff train you guys, and when he trains you, he's gonna pull all your hamstrings because I know you guys are out of shape because you're watching our show. But anyway, we are gonna get out of here, and as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
All right, I will be on tomorrow night with Dave Schofield. No Brian Anthony Davis. He's going to be a concert goer tomorrow night for the Steelers preview. And Lance and I will see you late Sunday night, early Monday morning after the Week 15 game and the Steelers post game. We'll see you next week for another episode of The Standard is the Standard.